I'm the economic advisor at Primerio International, a Pan-African boutique law firm specializing in competition law and antitrust, with 3 offices located in South Africa, Kenya, and Mauritius, as well as a number of partners throughout Africa. Primerio advises several clients in respect of antitrust and competition law matters across the African continent. This podcast forms part of our African Antitrust Agencies and Conversation with Primerio initiative, and the series is set to focus on the activities of the up-and-coming Mauritian Competition Commission. For purposes of this podcast, we're going to maintain a particular focus on the Market Research and Advocacy Division. And in the previous session, my colleague Tyler Lee Kutsun discussed all aspects of cartel conduct at the Mauritian Competition Commission with Vipin. And in the session following this one, Primerio's director, Michael James Curry, will discuss mergers and unilateral conduct with Sudesh. Today, we're joined by Sudesh Puran, and we're delighted to have you here and learn from your insights on your division. Sudesh is the head of Market Research and Advocacy at the Competition Commission of Mauritius. He's been with the Commission since 2010, and he studied at the University of Mauritius, obtaining a bachelor's degree in economics, and has also studied at the University of Nottingham, where he obtained a Master's of Science in Economics. The Competition Commission of Mauritius was established in 2009, and the Mauritian Competition Act was brought into effect in 2007. Since its inception, the Commission has successfully completed a number of market studies across various sectors, such as the retail sector, the pharmaceutical sector, and the construction sector. The Commission has increased its enforcement and activity during the course of the last year. The Competition Commission of Mauritius has not only increased its enforcement activity, but has also embarked on a number of advocacy initiatives. The Commission has actively participated in the elaboration of the AFCFTA competition protocol and is actively contributing to the development of the AFCFTA's regulation on abuse of monopolistic positions, mergers, and cartel conduct. The Commission has also been elected as the new chair of the African Competition Forum, a network of African national and multinational competition authorities, currently reporting 36 members. In addition, the Commission has been selected as co-chair of the International Competition Network's Merger Working Group. The ICN is a specialized network of 141 competition authorities from 129 jurisdictions, which advocates for best practice procedures in competition policy as well as international cooperation. Mauritius is also a member state of the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, commonly known as COMESA, and the Southern African Development Community regional blocks, and thus participates both regionally and continentally through these bodies. I want to give a warm welcome to Sudesh. I'm so glad to have you on this podcast series with me today. Welcome.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you for this invitation. Thank you to Primerio of giving this floor to Competition Commission. And thank you for this very comprehensive overview on our institution, the Competition Commission of Mauritius, and what we have been doing. I'm very pleased to be with you in this In Conversation initiative. I just want to add that my view that I'm going to express here belongs to me and is not that of the Competition Commission. So thanks again for the invitation, and I look forward to your question, to answer to your question.
Perfect. I think we'll dive right in. It's recently the Commission is conducting a market study on the distribution of foodstuff, investigating practices such as the remise de fin d'année. Could you explain how this this incentive structure potentially harms smaller distributors and affects consumer pricing?
Yes. This the distribution sector is one of our priority. We have been doing market study for this year in the port, in the digital market and distribution, pharmaceutical as well. So distribution is a very important sector which we are looking into, primarily because of increase in food prices and all sort of complaints that we are getting. And we have been getting some complaints from consumer organization, from some small distributors, saying that, access to market for them is quite difficult because of existing arrangement between large supermarkets and distributors. And one of those alleged practice that is potentially harming entry of new players and affecting our consumers is an alleged system of remise de fin d'année, right? And what is remise de fin d'année? That was your question. It's sort of a fidelity rebates that time large distributors to give guaranteed shelf space and create some sort of financial incentives for them to push up their products. And often this results in some sort of anti-competitive foreclosure for others to get into the market. So obviously, having some sort of discount promotional campaign is not bad, I say, but when you have established players and potentially those with market power, right, a big, and then this become an issue for new players to get into the market and for consumers to get new products, and then as an incentive for competition. But also, it's important to know that this remise de fin d'année, which is mostly in the modern channel of distribution, can also affect the traditional channel of small shops or convenience shops. So sometimes you may have what is it, the water back, the prices sometimes you have to pay for large supermarkets to promote your product, and then you can try to recoup. So I'm not saying that this is anti-competitive per se, but we have to look into whether they are the power, market power with those players, and potentially these may be harming competition. So yes, we have prioritized this market study, and I think there are a number of agencies, other agencies, which have also looked into all sort of arrangement. This doesn't cover only RFA, but all sort of arrangement, commercial arrangement between large supermarket and distributor that and try to better understand the competition landscape and how this is affecting competition. So we look forward to having to come up with our report and potentially some recommendation in this regards to make the market more competitive.
Yes, we're looking forward to when your recommendations and findings on this are released. To turn slightly to market studies more generally, I'm wondering if you could speak to the turnaround time of these market studies, specifically from the date that complaints are made to the Mauritian Competition Commission until the initiation of the relevant market study, and perhaps elaborate on the timeline of the market study itself. Sort of, is it a number of months? Is it a number of years? What does your timeline look like in that regard?
Sure. Thank you for that question. Actually, I would say that, unlike investigations, which are most of the time, but not always, prompted by complaints, and then, you launch an investigation, you have your timeline. For market studies, we have both a proactive and reactive approach. So because the competition law mandates the executive director, the head of the commission, investigative arm, to keep market under constant review and to undertake studies of competition related to the various sectors. So the clock doesn't start like, when there's a complaint, we launch a market study. So it can be like on our own initiative as well. So most of the time, we tend to follow the same sort of procedure. Once we have an issue, it can be generated as in this case, there was a number of complaints from small distributors, from consumer organizations. So this prompted us to do a bit of our research and to launch the market study. And normally when we launch a market study, we have a timeline. And in most cases, we try to start and finish a market study within a year. And we have done quite a few market studies within a year. The last one was a board market study, which this as well, we're going to launch our report shortly. And in the past, we have done like CMET. So, but also it depends on the scope and availability of resources and prioritization. So perhaps you may not have enough resources. Like in the case of board, we have had recourse to external, but most of the time we do it in-house. And then when we try to get it done within a year. But I would say that this is a strict timeline because our pharmaceutical market study took us slightly longer, mainly because we had to do a lot of information gathering, engagement with various stakeholders. We have to onboard them in the potential reform that we were bringing. And also we have to do market surveys on prices of drugs. So it is a question of scope and then your priority and then how much resources you have at that point in time. So, but basically we try to do it within a year or two. That would be the timeline for a market study. And we publish our various stages of consultation. We come up with the scope of the study, then we gather information. Then once we have produced a draft report, we issue the draft report, we invite comments, and yes, we come up with a final report. Yes.
Wonderful. You mentioned that you take both a proactive and reactive approach to initiating these studies, and I'm wondering, what is it that triggers a market study specifically by the Mauritian Competition Commission? We understand that in some cases it might be reports from consumers or competitors that say there are issues within the market, but are there other specific triggers outside of that?
Sure. I mean, there are a number of triggers for a market study, if I can put that. Like, I will give a simple example. Like, the market study for cement was launched simultaneously when we had an investigation related to a conduct into the cement market. Why? Because while we were doing the investigation, we found that there are a number of regulatory issues, regulatory intervention that could potentially harm competition, and that couldn't be solved by way of an investigation. So then we launched the market study, and that brought much more reform into the sector, the liberalization of the market, both imports and price, and that brought a number of advantages. So that was one thing. So there could be sources of information like people write on local newspaper. It could be like reports, like for the port market study, we had a report from the World Bank saying competitiveness of the sector is not very favorable. And then we have players complaining about the service and also competitors. So it is more like, when we do our market intelligence or screening sometimes to understand whether markets are working well. So we come across a number of issues and say perhaps there's a need to complement our understanding to find out whether there are issues, and then to better understand it, and then to come forward and see how we can improve competition in the market. Yeah, but primarily, also that we do market studies sometimes when we have a number of comments and try to see whether there could be some potential anti-competitive conduct as well. So it could be triggered by better understanding to find out whether there are some behavioral anti-competitive behavior that is not good for the market competition. Yes.
Wonderful. I want to turn to the advocacy efforts of the Mauritian Competition Commission, and in that you emphasize the importance of competition in promoting affordable consumer goods, and particularly following the COVID-19 pandemic. How have you found the pandemic to have shifted your priorities in terms of the market studies you've conducted and also competition enforcement, particularly given the fact that global market shocks are looking far more likely with significant geopolitical shifts and wars in the last few years?
Sure. I think this is a topic, an area which is of interest to all competition authorities. Food, global supply chain, and distortion in the global supply chain resulting in higher prices for commodity in the commodity market and food market. So this is something, because I think at the center of competition law is consumer welfare and economic efficiency. So I think when these two, like, you are having effect on costs of production, or ultimately directly, if you're an importing country like Mauritius, when you feel the price of imported goods higher because of so many factors that are affected, be it COVID pandemic, or be it geopolitical tension or restrictive policies by one country or other. So these are directly affecting businesses and consumers. So I think competition law is a tool that is meant to bring economic welfare, both consumer and producer welfare, in terms of maximizing. So there's a demand. So when there's a demand for something, I mean, you have to respond. And in the case of COVID, what was the demand for? People were looking for drugs, for gloves, for masks, for food. Right now it's for food prices. Now, there are a number of factors. It's not just geopolitical conflicts. There is adverse climatic condition. There are a number of things that is going on. So yes, there is a demand, and then how do we respond? Most of the time, the claim by consumer organization would be like, there are businesses who are involved in opportunistic price increases, and or others saying that there is some sort of margin squeeze, or they're increasing price upstream, or things like that. So what we respond. Sometimes you need to bring to solve for asymmetry of information, to bring more information. So what we started doing, we said, let's do some price monitoring for essential products or for construction materials and see how prices are evolving with respect to, and what are the cost drivers, to do some sort of difference in difference analysis, and to see whether the increases or margin before of the analysis, just to see whether there are areas which requires some sort of closer analysis. And you do market studies, and that's where I wanted to highlight that market studies, there are different forms of market study you can do. You do a market study, like a complete on a particular market, and then you come up with a report with the structure, with regulatory framework, with what to do with it, and then try to find out the issues. But also this type of price monitoring, this type of screening, these are the tools that is within the ambit of market study. And we have been doing quite a few. So I mentioned monitoring of food prices. We are monitoring construction prices. We are looking into, and we have launched distribution market study. We are doing a follow-up on pharmaceutical price market study. So we did a market study into pharmaceutical pricing of pharmaceutical product. Now and there was some recommendations. So now we're doing a follow-up monitoring on that as well, to see. So that is our response, is to meet the demand of all the players in terms of what is happening in terms of competition dynamics for those essential products. I hope I answer your question.
Yes, fantastic. It's good to hear. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, do any of your market studies consider broader regional trade issues, such as those that exist within the COMESA region, and also particularly with a view of the implementation of the AFCFTA?
Yes, thank you for that. Actually, we're getting to it. So we started with quite a lot of market studies of a nature that was at national level. But as we see that things may be happening globally into the global supply chain, and it's very important to understand what's happening at what level. So there may be anti-competitive practices that you're just importing it in through or importing inputs or final product, and with economic integration within Africa, right? So you may have enough number of platforms, buying platforms, and then export. So we have started doing some work at the level of with COMESA, with the African Competition Forum. And I will mention that last year, and the report will be ready soon, in terms of we did a regional trade flows studies, trying to understand into agriculture and agricultural input products. So trying to understand from where, as an African countries, we're importing the products, what is the price, whether we are subject to some excessive pricing or anti-competitive practices. So we have started doing, and we have planned to do some sort of collaborative studies with a regional dimension with COMESA as well. So and just to tell you that in the past we have done studies with ACF on mobile roaming, international mobile roaming charges, aviation, telecommunication. It was like a country chapter. We're trying to find out what are the issues across the various countries. But I think now we are moving into more studies that has a cross-border, like rather a regional dimension, to see whether the issues are of regional dimension and what should be the response to it. And we have it in our pipeline, and this is one of our key projects for the level of COMESA and ACF, to do a regional study. You mentioned that point, that we also have a project, special ICN food project, that is being led by the South African Competition Authority, which are members of the ACF, Kenyan Competition Authority, and COMESA. So we're doing some sort of a special food study to understand what could be the potential distortion at the level of regional supply chain. And Mauritius, as a member of ACF, we are participating in those endeavors. So yes, I think we are getting to it, but I also think that in the future we will be producing those reports, and those will be very important for us to have a concerted regional response to those concerns. And you mentioned AFCFTA. We were privy to be very active at the level in the elaboration of the AFCFTA protocol and the regulations. And then hopefully we'll have a continental response to all those challenges.
Perfect. It's really interesting to hear about all the regional integration initiatives you're involved in, and I'm very much looking forward to all the reports that are due to be released soon. I wonder if we can shift gears slightly and hear a little bit more about your post-market study enforcement activities. And so firstly, what does the monitoring of firms post-investigation or post-market study look like? Are the firms monitored after recommendations or decisions have been made? And again, what does the enforcement look like in this area?
Okay, you touch upon two things, investigation and market studies. So I mean, the regimes of monitoring are different. Yes. Now, when it comes to investigation and when we issue direction, obviously the executive director, the Competition Commission, has to monitor whether there is firms are abiding to what has been recommended. Now, in most of the cases, you will have, like, I give you an example. You had an abuse of dominance case related to a non-compete clause in terms of a radius clause in one of the contracts that a shopping mall, Bagatelle shopping mall, put in their tenants to prevent them going to other shopping malls. So what we did? They agreed to change that contract clause. So I think some are quite straightforward in terms of what action needs to be done. Right. If you need to do, like for in merger cases, if you say divestment or behavioral remedies, so most of the time what we do, we ask them, like in mergers, to send us annual reports in terms of what has been done, what has been implemented. But and in some cases, we even assess the effectiveness of the investigation. And I can tell you, and this report is available on our website, you can read it. Our first investigation, we did a post-intervention impact assessment, and to see, how the market has evolved since the concern was addressed. And so we do in case of investigation. There are various ways we do monitoring. First, we ask for the firms to send us reports on how they have implemented and effects on their financial statement and things like that. In case of mergers, we said that in case of market studies, right, we do follow-up studies as well. Like we have done in case of cement market study, we did a follow-up market study to find out, how the market has evolved. For pharmaceutical, we have issued some recommendation for government to change the pricing structure or bringing transparency or all sort of things. So what we do most of the time when we issue the report, we have engagement with the authorities, right, to have meetings, to present, because you can't force sometimes recommendation upon authorities, but you can see whether those have been implemented. And many of our recommendation, if I want to say most of our recommendation, have been implemented in the case of cement, in case of pharmaceutical, and the other market studies that we have done. So we don't have monitoring trustees or things like that for the time being in our country, in our jurisdiction. But we try to go and we do this constant monitoring of the sector. We talk to competitors and see whether the problem has been solved. Yes.
That's great to hear. My next question is, given the size of the Mauritian economy, are there specific challenges the Commission faces when dealing with enforcement on multinational companies as compared to local entities? And if so, how does the Commission ensure fair competition when these large corporations do hold dominant positions within certain sectors and markets?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for that question. See, in Mauritius, we have quite a few, not quite, but a few conglomerates, big companies, and that have been subject to investigation. I would say my personal experience, because the investigation that I have led, or even my colleagues, we didn't have much problem in terms of those big firms complying with our information requests, or not someone, but requesting them to attend oral hearing, or in terms of information submission. So we didn't have much of an issue. Obviously, they will rebut if they have grounds to rebut the issue that we put to us. But in terms of compliance with the investigation, through meetings, information submission, or their views, I didn't see much of a challenge, right? Well, we have large firms. Recently, we had one case where they challenged us in terms of whether we had reasonable grounds to lodge investigation on legal basis. But you cannot stop a firm challenging you. That's their right, because everyone has rights. No, not really. To my knowledge, even for international firms, I was also involved in investigating a matter where Visa, Mastercard were there, but they complied to our request for meeting, submission, and more recently we had a merger case involving Engen and Vivo, big companies, like and then we showed divestment in that merger, and they accepted. So I think we didn't have much of an issue in dealing with those large firms, be it local or international. I'll just give you another example. We recently did a market study, a digital market study in Mauritius, and then we requested meeting with the like of bookings, and they attended our meetings, and so we find our way to deal with those big firms. Yes.
Wonderful. That's great. And my final question for you today is, given the nature of competition policy, there's many individuals that may not be aware of that their actions in their day-to-day business are in actual violation of competition law. What sort of advocacy initiatives does the Commission have lined up to assist in ensuring these market players are aware of the competition regulations and legislations in place? And what role do you find that advocacy plays in preempting these violations?
Big question. I think even if you do a survey in UK or in other Australia, I think the response won't be more than 50% of businesses or consumers knowing competition law. This is an area that not many knows. I think some point in time, even we did a survey of businesses in terms of their awareness and compliance on competition law. I think the response was not very good, because this is a global, I would say. I don't have exact data on that, but I think the advocacy is an ongoing process, and there are different stages of advocacy and different targets, and you choose your target depending on where you are with competition law enforcement. When we were during our early days back in 2009, late 2009, we started with more like soft approach, bringing in, partnering with industry associations, Chamber of Commerce, bringing lawyers, businesses under one roof and talking to them, explaining to them what is competition law, encouraging compliance, going out to big firms, explaining to them. So it was more like soft enforcement in a way to encourage them adopting a culture of competition. And then we built on that. But I would tell you, when you start investigating and when the news appear on the newspaper, this is the best advocacy you can have, but complementary as well. So we do a lot of workshop with the legal how do you call Institute for Legal and IGLS Institute, the legal community. We partner the Chamber of Commerce in some of our initiatives. we talk to academics, right? We had we did some events for university students as well. We are partnering academics doing research. We talk with consumer organization every time, we consult them. We organize like every year when we do our sometimes we do our workshop or conference, we invite those people. So I think consumer organization, business community, and industry association, legal are very important, legal people, right? Even we recently touched the judges. We leverage on COMESA. They did a workshop for judges and a very important stakeholder in competition law. So we try to reach them. Obviously, you can't reach everyone, but it has to be continuous. And things like we do our newsletter. We send out to the maximum of the stakeholder. I'm sure you should have get our latest newsletter we released recently. So our annual report, but these are publication, and then events. So yes, that would be our advocacy initiative. We work. I forgot to tell you that we work with the Public Procurement Office to address, to prepare, to educate, to train public procurers on how to detect cartel. We work with them to put the safeguard against anti-competitive practice in public procurement. So we try to see where we can push and we can promote competition law. I hope it helps.
Definitely, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sudesh. I think that is us for today. Those are all the questions I had for you. Thank you for your candor and for your answers, and your insights into the market research and advocacy division at the Mauritius Competition Commission. We'll be looking forward to the next session where my colleague Michael James Curry speaks with your head of mergers and unilateral conduct, Sudesh. And again, thank you very much. I've really enjoyed having this discussion with you.
It was my pleasure to be with you. So see you soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Sudesh. Bye-bye.
Bye.